So it's Game Changers Championship time today. We're going to do our Pickems. The tournament starts in just a couple hours of this video. I'll also make a little group if you want to join a Pick'em group. So let's dive in, shall we? And what I'm first going to do is just introduce you to the team. So those of you who haven't been following Game Changers too much, we're just going to quickly do a TLDR on all of the teams, and then we're going to get into the Pick'em. So let's start with Shopify Rebellion. This is a team that you probably know if you know any of the Game Changers teams. They won the championship essentially in 2023, so they are probably the favorites coming in. It was a close final game against Team Liquid Brazil, but they probably will be the favorites and are considered, you know, just an amazing team. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Fluorescent and just the insane player that they are, but also, you know, this is just a really good team. There isn't too much to say. It's the same team that won the championship last year. They'll be one of the favorites, if not the favorite for the tournament, of course. Moving on to FlyQuest Red. This is a team that, again, if you have been around Game Changers, you'll know some of these names, perhaps particularly Sunder, of course, who was in the final of the first Game Changers Championship in 2022. FlyQuest Red have kind of just consistently been the second best team, right? You look at some of their results, like they're losing to Shopify here 3-0, 3-2, but they're basically beating everyone else for the most part, right? That's kind of where FlyQuest are. They are, you know, pretty good, but, you know, they just have a demon in Shopify Rebellion. Then you've got Crew Blaze. Now, Crew Blaze were in the championship last year, and if you watch their team, Kania in particular, crazy player. They've kept the 3 non-Brazilian players that they had last year, but added the 2 new Brazilian players who I'm not as familiar with. Crew have just, I mean, they haven't lost a game since March, you know, so obviously very strong. I mean, just looking at this, of course. So, of course, we're expecting them to be a bit of a threat, and Kania in particular, very strong. Made in Brazil Game Changers is an interesting one because, of course, Team Liquid Brazil came second last year, but Made in Brazil have basically been better than them for most of this season. You know, Series 1, it went to Team Liquid, but then in Series 2, we went back to MIBR being on top of Brazil, and in Series 3 as well, MIBR, as you can see, beat Team Liquid Brazil twice. So, I mean, this was the team that finished second last year, right? So, you know, you would assume that MIBR, and again, I'm not too familiar with these players, but SRN, I mean, look at this. 97 kills in the grand final here, plus 39. This is only in 4 maps. They got 97 kills. So SRN looks definitely like a player to watch out for. Okay, now moving on to Ambitious Legend Gaming, who are the Chinese representative. What I love about them is that they've barely played any games, right? They basically came into existence and then just won without ever losing a map. I don't really know how good this team is going to be because, you know, it's not going to be easy to tell. They do have a couple players who've actually been, like Jenny Muffin, I think Yusin might have been as well, in some Game Changers Championships before, so it's not like they're completely new to the whole thing, but as a team, they are pretty new. Then, of course, we have G2 Gozen, who will be one of the favorites for sure. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Mimi and Petra, who've been on this team for a very long time, but essentially, they added some absolute monsters from the rest of EMEA. I mean, Vanya in particular, Amy I know from Ascend as well, but Vanya, I mean, just an insane player. I'm sure if you've ever watched Vanya play, you'll know what I'm talking about. So this is a team that's looking to win, right? In 2023, G2 didn't do too well at the championship overall. You know, I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't, you know, amazing. It wasn't what they wanted. They lost to SR, they lost to Team Liquid Brazil, you know, not where they wanted to be. Of course, they won in 2022, but this is a team that is definitely looking to challenge to win again. Then moving on to Giants, and Giants have, again, if you're familiar with the Game Changer scene, you'll know some of these names. Smurfette, great name. Sarah, who was on G2 last year. Jolina played for Ascend, so I'm pretty familiar with them. It's been a bit more mixed for Giants throughout the season. You know, you could see maybe a few more losses than some of these other teams, but, you know, obviously they finished the year pretty strong, as you can see, just losing to G2 Gozen in their final. And then you've got Team Falcons, and Team Falcons I'm not as familiar with in general. Most of you will probably recognize Mary, who was a winner with G2 in the first Game Changers Championship, but other than that, I'm not as familiar with Team Falcons, but as you can see, it's been a pretty dominant run for them throughout most of this season. Then you've got Zipto Esports, who will be a fan favorite, no doubt, not just because their logo is cool, because this is basically most of the team that was SMG last year. And if you watched last year's Game Changers Championship, you'll know that these players are crazy, they are cracked. You know, it's your classic Asia Pacific madness that's going on. This is the team that accidentally locked in 4 duelists and a Cypher and won that map convincingly anyway. You know, they are really just absolutely crazy and a lot of fun to watch. And then finally, we have Zeta Division Game Changers, who I'm not as familiar with because they didn't make it as a representative last year. We've gone from 8 to 10 teams, so, you know, we've opened up a couple more slots for Game Changers. Not as familiar with them. They did lose to Zipto here pretty convincingly in the final, so that does give me, you know, Some concerns that, you know, they probably won't be looking to do too well in this tournament overall, but it's good for the Japanese scene, of course, to have a Game Changers team here. So as a quick rundown of the teams, now let's get into the Pickems. And so the bracket looks like this, right? We've got kind of a somewhat modified bracket based off where the teams kind of finished, or where, you know, people from that region finished in last year's Game Changers. You know, double elim bracket here, no group stage or anything like that. So, you know, for these teams starting, you know, at the start of this, it's going to be interesting. We've got Crew versus Zeta, and as I said, I do think that Crew will have just a bit too much for Zeta in that one. This one, though, is a bit of an unknown, right? I don't know how good Ambitious Legends are going to be, but the same could be said for Falcons as well. I'm going to take a bit of a punt here and go for Ambitious Legends and the Chinese team that hasn't lost a map. They've actually only played like 3 maps ever as well. They just keep playing the same maps over and over again, so God knows what will actually happen in this one. Tough for Team Falcons to really scout them too much. Moving on, then we get G2 Gozen versus Crew. I will go for G2 in that one. Giants versus MIBR could be very close. I think I'm actually going to slightly lean MIBR in that one. Again, somewhat basing this off the fact, hey, if you can beat Team Liquid, you know, who were last year's runners-up, you got to be pretty good, you would assume. So I'll go for MIBR in that one. SR I will go for over Ambitious Legend there. And FlyQuest versus Zipto I think will be very, very close. But I'm actually going to go for Zipto in that one. Coming down to the lower bracket, then this would give us this. I will slightly go, again, Giants team, Falcons, 2 teams that have played each other multiple times this season. It's kind of gone back and forth. I'll toss a coin and go for Giants, I guess, but that could go either way. FlyQuest versus Zeta, I'm going to go for FlyQuest. Then here, Crew, Giants. Again, could be close. I think I'm going to slightly edge Giants there, and then I'm going to go for FlyQuest over Ambitious Legend. We'll come back up to the top of the bracket here. We'll go for G2 versus MIBR. You know what? Fine, I'll go G2. I'll go SR over Zipto here as well. Then I will have those teams that lost though winning in the lowest. So Zipto and MIBR go to the lower round 4. I'll go for Zipto here in the lower round 4. And then we'd end up with G2 versus Shopify upper final. Oh, this really could go either way, couldn't it? Oh, this is going to be tough. This is going to be tough. I mean, I can't doubt Fluorescent. I just can't. So I'm going to go SR. Then I'm going to go for a bit of a surprise and say that Zipto will beat G2 Gozen, but ultimately SR will win. That's going to be my Pickems for this one. Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting. I think from 2022 to 2023, we definitely saw a kind of, you know, most teams kind of converge, you know, in terms of the skill level. I think, you know, there was quite a competitive level at the last championship. So this one as well, I'm hoping if that continues, that we could be in for quite a few upsets, quite a few surprises, and who knows what will happen.